Welcome to episode 15 of the Head in the Clouds video series. I am Ken Hartman, a SANS certified instructor and content creator for the SANS Cloud Security Curriculum. Today's episode is titled Getting to Know Docker Hub. Lately, we've been talking about Docker containers. In episode 13, we covered some Docker basics, and then in episode 14, we created and tested an image that contained the command line interfaces for AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. In this episode, we will be pushing the image up to Docker Hub and setting up an integration with GitHub so that when we push a change to the main branch of our Git repo, Docker Hub will build a new image based on our latest changes. While we are at it, we will turn on vulnerability scanning. We will assume that you have Docker Community Engine installed on an Ubuntu 20.01 machine. Refer to episode 13 for instructions on installing Docker. Or as a shortcut, we have a gist that is hyperlinked in the show notes that will give you all the commands to get all that set up and configured for you. In episode 14, we created a Docker file for our container of cloud tools. To pick up where we left off last episode, recreate that Docker file on your Ubuntu virtual machine using a text editor. For your convenience, you can just copy and paste this content right from the show notes website. Before we can jump into our content, let's build it and run it, just to make sure that everything is fine and dandy. When the prompt changes to HITC at, we know we are good to go. Type exit to exit the container. Navigate over to hub.docker.com and sign up, assuming you do not have an account yet. Note that the second half of what we will be covering during today's episode assumes that you have a paid subscription, Pro, Team, or Business. The Pro subscription is $5 per user per month, and that is what I have, but I paid the annual fee, which is $60 a year. Now that you have a Docker Hub account, create a repository by clicking the blue button on the top right side of the web page. Name your new repository HITC-tools and set the visibility to public. You can leave the description blank for now and leave the build settings alone for now as well. We will be setting that up in a little bit. Once the repository has been created in Docker Hub, we can see a black box titled Docker Commands. This box contains the Docker command that we will need to push our image to Docker Hub. Before we can push the image, we need to tag it with our repository name and log into Docker Hub from the virtual machine. Let's start by looking at the images that we have on our system. Our image is HITC-tools, but it needs to have our Docker Hub username as part of the tag. My Docker Hub username is resistor52, so I will use that in the following command to tag my image. Just remember to replace resistor52 with your Docker Hub username. Now, when we run Docker images, we see two lines with the same image ID, and we see that an entry with our username has been added. Now, to log into Docker Hub, type Docker login and provide your Docker Hub credentials. Cool. Now we can push our image up to the Docker Hub repo. And again, remember to change resistor52 to your Docker Hub username. It will take a little bit while each layer is pushed up, but eventually it will complete. Now, refresh the Docker Hub web page that is showing your repository, and you will see the image with the latest tag showing. Click on the latest tag as it is a hyperlink. This new page shows the layers. If we select a layer, we can see the commands that are part of that layer. Now that we have stored the image in Docker Hub, we can pull it down whenever we need it to any system that has Docker installed. And since it's a public repository, we don't even need to be logged in. Run docker logout to prove this. Next, let's blow away all images and containers on our VM. Type docker system prune -- all, and then hit the Y key when prompted. We can verify that we don't have any images on the local system using Docker images. Okay, well, let's pull down our image from Docker Hub. Now, when we run Docker images, we can verify that we have a local copy, and we can run it. Wouldn't it be cool if we could connect a GitHub code repo with our Docker Hub image repo, such that every time we committed a code change to our main branch, Docker Hub would automatically build the image for us? Well, we're going to be doing that next. Note that this capability assumes that you have a paid Docker Hub subscription. Log into your GitHub account and create a new public Git repo called HITC tools. Use the following blurb for the description. A Docker container of cloud tools includes AWS, Azure, and G-Cloud command line interfaces. Click the Add a README file and choose the MIT license. Click the green Create Repository button. Next, let's add our Docker file to the Git repo. In the web UI, click the Add File button and select Create New File. Call the new file Docker file and paste in the following contents from our show notes website. Click on the Commit New File button at the bottom of the page. Now that we have a Git repo with our Docker file, let's connect that to Docker Hub. Back in the Docker Hub webpage, looking at the HITC tools repository, click on the Builds tab. Click the Link to GitHub button. This will open up a new page. On the line that lists GitHub, click the Connect hyperlink and link your GitHub account to Docker Hub. Click the button again to inform Docker Hub of which Git repo to use. Set the source repository. In my case, it's resistor52/HITC tools. Change the auto test setting to internal pull requests. Change the build rules so that the source field reads main instead of master. Note, the default branch in GitHub for new repos is now main so as to be more inclusive. Click Save. Great. Now let's make some changes in our Docker file in GitHub and verify that Docker Hub gets triggered to build a new image when we commit the change to GitHub. Using the web UI for GitHub, edit the Docker file. We want to make two changes. First, we want to install Git, so add that to line 4 after the word sudo. While we're at it, let's use the line continuation character / to make our code more readable. Once your edits are complete, go ahead and commit the change. Back in the Docker Hub web user interface, take a look at the Builds tab, click Refresh, and after a few minutes, you should now see In Progress under the latest build status column. It will take a while, but eventually Docker Hub will finish building the new image. Also notice the bar charts under the build activity in the web form. It shows queued, success, failed, and canceled builds. Once the latest build status reads success, we can test our new image. Back on the virtual machine, let's run the new image right from the repo. First, to demonstrate this, let's zap everything using Docker system prune all. Now, run a container based on our Docker Hub image. Note that the output reads unable to find image locally, so Docker has to pull it down before it can run it. Since we have the container's prompt, let's see if the container has Git installed. Run git -- version. And it does. Awesome. Another amazing feature of the Docker Hub paid subscriptions is image vulnerability scanning. So let's enable that next. Back in the Docker Hub web UI, click on the General tab under the HITC Tools repository. Right in the middle of the screen, notice that there is a message that reads Vulnerability Scanning Disabled. Click the Enable Hyperlink button that is right under the message. This brings you to the Settings tab. Click the blue Enable Image Scanning button. And now we see that the vulnerability scanning is enabled and powered by Snyk. Let's make one more change to the Docker file over in GitHub. Not sure if you noticed, but the shell for our Ubuntu user is sh. And perhaps we want to change it to be bash. So let's change lines 1 through 7 to read as shown on the screen, and then commit the change. This will trigger Docker Hub to perform another build, this time with a vulnerability scan. Since this will take a while, now is a great time to refill your coffee. After our coffee break, when we take a look at the General tab, we can see that Snyk found some medium and some low priority vulnerabilities. Click on the color boxes and it will bring you to the Vulnerabilities tab. We can click on most of the results to get additional details, and there's also a link to read more at the snyk.io webpage. Wonder how come there's so many vulnerabilities. Even though it was a recent Ubuntu 20.04 image that we used as our base image, it turns out that it was wrong to assume that it was free of known vulnerabilities. Well, good thing we checked. Drilling into the vulnerabilities, though, on the Snyk website, it looks like there are not any patches yet for the items that were found. This is further confirmed by running the following command at the interactive containers prompt. So apt upgrade found 0 patches to apply. Now, had this manual step found patches to apply, well, I would have added it to the Docker file. Okay, so at this point, we need to decide if we're going to accept the risk. Considering that this container is not running internet-facing services and will only run code that I, as the system owner, control, I will accept the risk. You, my dear listener, have to make a similar decision for yourself. Remember, known risks are always better than unknown risks. Always remember that security research is unending and new vulnerabilities are found on a frequent basis. So it's important to build a new image on a regular basis to ensure that it is as patched as possible. On top of that, the command line interfaces are updated frequently by each of the cloud services providers. Kicking off a new build ensures that the image has the most up-to-date functionality in the command line interfaces as well. Well, there you go. We pushed our HITC Tools container image up to Docker Hub, demonstrated how we can pull it down and run it from anywhere. Next, we set up a code repo in GitHub and linked it to our Docker Hub image repo. This way, as we make changes to the Git repo, it will trigger a Docker Hub build. Next, we enabled vulnerability scanning, powered by Snyk, and discussed vulnerability remediation. If you have thoughts or comments on today's episode, feel free to chime in on the comments for this YouTube video. If you appreciate this video and want to see more like it, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Stay tuned for another installment of Head in the Clouds, as announcements of new episodes are made on the SANS Cloud Security Twitter feed. Meanwhile, be sure to check out the other great videos on the SANS Cloud Security YouTube channel. Take care.